This is the worst patch ever for Evil Dead the game. It's just terrible. And I'm not talking about the content itself from the Evil Dead 2013 content update. The demon, the two new survivors are perfectly fine. I'm speaking strictly about the balance of the game. And I wanted to make a video talking a little bit about why that is, why I feel that way, and the direction I think the game should head. So first of all, I wanted to say that before this patch, I thought that the game was fairly balanced, if not a little favored towards the demon still. Because as I was looking at gameplay at the highest level, I was seeing games where the vast majority of the time, the top tier demon players were still winning at the book. Now, at that time, I think that the complaint or the angle that demon players were taking was, well, okay, yeah, we win 99 out of 100 games, but we have to win it at the book. The journey to get to a win is not fun. Like they were complaining, well, we have to flip cars, we have to spam basics, we have to do the same boring thing every single time, and it's just not very fun. And then just knowing that we have to go through a boring gameplay loop through the first 3/4 of the match just to win at the end because it's really easy to destroy the book is not fun. So even though we're racking up wins, the concern is not our win rate. The concern is the fun factor. That is a reasonable thing to say. That's a reasonable request. Make the gameplay for the demon players better. But the reason I know that was a disingenuous complaint is that now when I look at top tier demon players play, they are now saying that this is the best patch that the Evil Dead has ever come out with, but the gameplay loop hasn't changed. They still have to go around and flip cars. They still have to go around and spam basics. Now there's a little bit more variety, like with elites and stuff. Like I know that Plague Bringer has a little bit of variety with using an elite build there, but for the most part, it's basically the same gameplay loop that they had before. And yet now they're saying, well, best patch ever. I love the state the game is in, because that's not what they cared about. That's not what they cared about at all. What they cared about was winning 100% of their games. People, top tier demons, feel entitled to winning 100% of their matches. And the problem is that out of every 100 games, they'd have that one game where they would play some 4-stack of TTVers, a sweat squad that would go through the match and would beat them. And I've watched some of those matches. I watched some of those matches before this most recent patch. And in watching those matches, it was about 50-50 from the matches that I had seen, the replays I had seen. It was about 50-50. Sometimes the demon would win, sometimes the survivor would win, and usually what would determine who won came down to RNG. It would be determined by what kind of loot did the survivors find. If they got a bunch of legendaries, chances are they were going to win. If they didn't, chances are the demon was going to win. And so it would come down to the book, and it would still be about a 50-50 chance of this really top tier demon beating this really top tier full 4-person survivor squad. Now I've watched those same gameplay, and now the demons are winning 100% of the time. Now they're beating these 4 stacks every game. And here's my issue with that sort of balancing philosophy. You cannot balance your asymmetrical game around the top 1% of players. You particularly can't do that in instances where one side is winning 99% of their matches, and you're saying, okay, well, out of every 100 matches they play, one of their matches they're going to go up against a very rare 4-person squad and have a bad experience and lose. You can't balance around that. You have to balance around whatever the largest portion of your player base is. So when I say you can't balance around the top 1%, usually I get people who want to use a bunch of hyperbole and say, well, Sludge said don't balance around the top 1%, so he thinks you should balance around the trash bottom 1%. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need to look at data and see what the largest portion of your player base is, which, based on data that came over from Dead by Daylight, is always solo queuers. It's always people who are playing by themselves, and you have to balance around that. And I'm sorry to say this, but if balancing around that means that out of every 100 games you play as a demon, you're going to get absolutely bullied by a 4-person squad, tough. You have to deal with it. Sorry. Like, go cry to Reddit, go cry in the YouTube comments. Tough. Get over it. You're going to win 99% of the rest of your matches. The problem is, especially the problem here is, if you make the game utterly miserable, and that's not what I'm advocating here, but for the sake of argument, I'll present this to you. If you make the game miserable for the top 1% of players and they quit, you are only losing 1% of your player base. If you make the game miserable for the other 99% of your game, you're going to lose that 99% of your player base and your game is going to die. So you cannot balance your game that way. I want you to take a look at Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight is the only successful game that there's ever been in this genre, and they have never, in the 6 to 7 years that that game has been out for, they have never balanced around the top 1%. From the outset of that game to now, at the highest level of play, survivors have a ridiculous advantage over killers. Because the devs realize in that game, as dumb as those devs over there at Behavior might be sometimes, they at least understand that to maintain a player base, they have to balance the game around whatever the largest portion of their player base is. They can't balance around the idea that we're going to be trying to create an esport with this asymmetrical game. You can't balance that way. And on top of that, the way the game is right now, it is miserable for the other 99%. You're going to lose the vast majority of your games right now in solo queue. You cannot balance your game that way, or your game is going to die. So I hope more than, and here's what I really want to say too. What I would like to see from the devs is for them to come out and tell us what they see as being the future of this game. Do they want to balance the game around the top 1% and say, hey, you need to get into a full coordinated group because that's what we're balancing around? Or are they going to balance around solo queue and balance around the largest portion of their player base? Because if they're going to balance around the top 1%, and they need to tell people that and be like, listen, you better join the Evil Dead Discord. You better make some friends, get in a full group, learn to play with each other, because that's the only way you're going to have fun with our game. And don't even bother trying to play solo queue because you're going to have a terrible time. Let us know that if that's the case. Otherwise, you need to let us know that you're going to balance around the largest portion of your player base and tell us that we don't need to do that we don't need to get into a group and we can play solo queue and play the game that way. So I'm sure this will probably be the most controversial video that I've made. I'll probably have 500 comments on this video of people agreeing, disagreeing. Hey, I also want to make it clear, for people who get the angriest at this video, they're probably not even going to make it this far in the video. But I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't care if you disagree with me. I don't care if you think I'm a complete jabroni with my opinion. All I ask is that you are civil in the way that you disagree. If you throw insults, if you say that I'm trash, if you say that my opinion doesn't matter, stuff like that, I'm just going to delete your comments and ban you from being able to comment on the channel. That's just all I'm going to do. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to respond. So all I ask is that it's totally okay to disagree. All I ask is that you do so in a respectful manner and at least explain your position and say, well, I think that they should balance around the top 1%, and here's why. So let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty frustrated with this patch. Right now I'm playing the Dragon Ball Breakers beta, which has been pretty fun because I think the most fun period for any asymmetrical game is that period in the beginning when nobody really knows what they're doing. So that's been a blast playing that right now. Who knows where that's going to end up, but that's where I'm at right now. not playing Evil Dead so much, kind of still waiting on the next balance patch where hopefully they don't swing it back the other direction. Hopefully they find a nice middle ground and balance it around the majority of their player base and not do a complete 180 from where they're at right now, and find that nice middle ground. But let me know what you think. Like the video, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you guys in the next one.